Welcome to the High Performance Man podcast. I am your host, John Fayocavitz. On this show, I interview successful men who have built impressive careers in businesses, founders, CEOs, and senior leaders, and professionals who have operated at a high level for years. We talk about what actually made them successful. So the goal is simple: to learn directly from men who have done it, so we can apply those insights into our own careers and businesses and lives and continue raising our own standard of performance. The show is sponsored by the Prime Performance Method. The Prime Performance Method is designed specifically for high-performing men who have achieved success in their careers but feel like their body and energy have taken a hit along the way. We help busy professional men regain strength, energy, and feel younger without the long workouts, extreme dieting, or disrupting their demanding schedule. If you are a high-performing man who wants to feel strong and energized as you are successful, message me, John Fayocavitz, on LinkedIn. On today's show, we have Mark Levy, who is the owner of Levy Innovation, where he differentiates organizations, brands, and thought leaders around a big, sexy idea, a signature idea that they will be known for. Mark, thank you so much for coming on today. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Well, we're here to learn a little bit about you and what made you successful and your business, okay?
Sure.
So what's the most important lesson you've learned so far that's helped you become successful in your business?
The most important lesson, let's see, that's a good question. So I would probably say it's the need to be bold in what it is that
Beautiful.
you're doing, that if you're a little too cautious, that can get in your way if you allow all kinds of conditions to hold you back. That in order, because I've worked with the head of a division of the White House. I've worked with people from movies and TV, like major
Wow.
shows, all kinds of. I worked with the CEO of Popeyes, who turned Popeyes around. I worked with the president of UPS. I've worked with all kinds of people. And I find that you have to decide what's right. This will sound very ordinary, but it's very, very important that you have to decide what's right. And then you go with it. Like as a matter of fact, I've worked with a lot of major CEOs in my life. And someone once asked me what was the difference between like a major CEO and other people. And I'd say, well, the interesting thing from the CEOs who I've worked with, who I've met, it's they make very important decisions that affect lots of people, and they can make those decisions rapidly, and they stick to them.
Yes.
Like I have talked to CEOs who their decision is going to affect tens of thousands of employees or whatnot. And like on the
Right.
call, they'll say, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like they'll think we could do A, B, C. Let's do B. We're doing B.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
And they
that's
make a
what we're
decision.
doing.
Yeah.
you know?
They make that decision and they stick with it and they're not swayed by anything.
Right. Well, I mean, if situations change, they'll of course
Right.
change. But in general, they keep their hand on the tiller and they like keep the direction going. They don't let things pull them off course. So that's what
Exactly.
I find. Yeah,
And they don't have that distractions. They don't have,
that's right. And I find trying to think and act in bold ways is something that you need to learn, that we're not necessarily. I know I grew up in a middle class household in Flushing, Queens, New York, being bold. And I was born in the early 60s. So when I grew up, it was the tall nail gets the nail sticking out gets hammered down, the
yeah.
tall poppy gets cut down. Like, we were the opposite of bold. So,
Right.
but I discovered that if I wanted to make anything interesting in life happen, I had to really go against the norm and make a very, very clear choice
Right.
about what I was going to speak about or do. So
So
anyway, it's something you learn. You're not necessarily born with, or at least I wasn't.
how many years have you had Levy Innovation?
Uh, 26 years. Yeah,
26 years.
I used to. So what I used to do is I was the sales director of the third largest book distributor in North America. I helped them sell over $1 billion worth of books. We'd buy we'd buy millions of dollars worth of books from the major publishers like Random House, Simon and Schuster, Doubleday, and so forth. And then we keep them in our warehouses. And then we would sell them either on by phone, either to buying offices like Barnes and Noble, like the bit, or
Right.
individual bookstores. And so I learned how to sell over the course of 10 years or however long I did that work. I forget how long it was, but I construed that I had done over 25,000 live pitches for money. So at
Wow.
selling book, so I'd have to get on the phone with no money and I'd have to pitch books and end up with $200 or $2,000 or $20,000 from a phone call. And then I just have to pick up the phone again and do it again and do it again. And so doing anything, it's not like I'm so talented at pitching, but the fact that I would have to look at books and size up what they were about and should they sell, what was happening that would make them sell or not sell, and then call clients, call, bookstores and whatnot, and tell them about these books and get them to buy. I learned from doing it 25,000 odd times. I learned what got people excited about an idea, what got them reticent about an idea, and so forth. It was just through repetition. And so, what I did after doing that job, as long as I did, I then left it and I started to deal with companies and even individuals. I started to deal with them like they were a book, whether they had written a book or not, like their business. I would
Right.
say, okay, what quote unquote book has John written with his life? Like
Wow.
how is he pitching that book, quote
Book.
unquote, now? And now I would question you and ask you questions about your background, about your clientele, and all kinds of things. And then I would take different ideas that were part of your story, but you weren't featuring, and I would move them to the fore. And I'd say, okay, if his quote unquote book was about this idea instead of that idea, or if we took the moral from this story of his rather than the one he's using, or we put two ideas together that he currently had separated and we made that what his quote unquote book is about, would that make it a
Wow.
better selling book? And how would I pitch it so that people would get excited? And that's what I've
Wow.
done. I've done work with and spoken to companies like Google and Adobe and American Express and Amazon and people like that. But he also, some of your viewers might know clients like Simon Sinek of Start With
Yep.
Why fame. So Simon, I'm the guy who differentiated Simon Sinek. When he and I were working like 15 years ago, however long ago it was, he was not known. It was while we were working together that he came up with Start With Why and the Golden Circle, Inspire Action, all those things. But I always approach things in the same way. Whatever it is I'm helping someone sell or differentiate, whether it's a machine, like I've worked with big factories or so, or it's always, I look at it as a book. And I just say, what's the story here? What's the story that they're currently telling? And what might be a better story that would get people excited about it? And now, how would they go about pitching that in everything they do at trade shows, on their website, in speeches?
Right. Wow. That
That's
is
what it is I
great.
do.
So is you're basically like, if you're talking going back to a book, it's like ghostwriting, right? I mean, you're helping them. It's a lot of brainstorming.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's what idea here would excite people that's being underexplored at the moment. And
Yes.
now how do we raise that to the fore so that they can sell more of whatever it is that they're selling? Or they can get people excited about ideas, even if sales is not part of it. that like I've worked with politicians, I've worked with, what policy is the policy, how are they going to talk about it so that
Right.
people get behind it? It's essentially how to create evangelists for you and your business, how to get people so excited by an idea or a story that they'll talk about it even when you're not around. That's
That
what
is
it is I do.
so interesting, man. That is,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
man, that is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. My next question, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have already touched a little bit on this. What do you think hinders a lot of men from reaching their full potential?
Oh, what hinders them from these are questions no one's ever asked me before, so forgive me for
That's okay. This
stopping
is
to
what,
think. They're great questions. I have to stop and think about it. Uh, I I would say one thing that would stop men from reaching their full potential is, again, and this really has to do with decisiveness.
yep.
Like once you've thought through an idea and made a decision and you've thought about it, like now you take action on it. And the reason why I'm saying that, like what I'm saying might sound like, oh, that's common sense, of course. I have seen a lot of people reach a very good decision about like some idea, and then they get stopped because not every human being in the world agrees with them. Like, so they'll go out and try to execute upon their decision. And like someone will say, I don't really like that.
And I stop.
And then they'll stop. And
Yep.
it's like, oh my God, like
It,
there's 8 billion people on planet Earth.
I,
You're not going to get everyone in lockstep behind in
nope.
agreement with what it is you've decided. Like, come on.
And if you can't believe in yourself and what you're going for, there's nothing. You might as well stop right there.
That's right. That's right. Well, related to this, and I quote this quite often, um, um, 30 odd years ago in Rolling Stone magazine, there was an interview that I read with a director. And I can't remember if the director was David Cronenberg or Jim Jarmusch, but there was some art house director, right? Like Cronenberg did The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. They do
Yep.
these odd films.
Right.
Whichever director it was someone who did odd films. And they asked them a question about how they approach the films, about making a film. And whoever the director was answered it this way. They said, an entertainer, and this is directly about leading an effective life. So they said, an entertainer gives you those old songs you know and love so well. He said, an artist gives you what you couldn't know you'd want this time, but you know you'd want next time.
Wow.
Because an artist, right? An artist is an innovator. So,
Yes.
like, whenever I work with people, I try not to work with entertainers. It's not that there's anything wrong with them, but like, these are people who are trying to like just measure what the marketplace wants to hear. And
Right.
like, I'm not really interested in that. I like
That
to
is
work
so
with
good.
people who take an artist's
Art.
approach, where it's what do I know? What's important that needs to be said or done in the world? And I'm going to go out and be behind this idea, whether everyone agrees with me or not, because they'll eventually agree with me down the road, but initially they're not going to.
That is
So
so
that,
great.
yeah, the artist's approach. Yeah,
Awesome insight, man. I love
yeah,
it.
cool.
All right. My next question. For most men on the road to business or professional success, other areas of their life get sacrificed. What's been one of the areas of your life that has suffered, but where you'd like to be successful now too? So it's like a two-part question there. Like, what areas of life, if maybe there's something that haven't suffered because you started this 26 years ago,
Right.
and I'm sure it transitioned too. From where you started to where you are now, and from there. And then where would you like to be successful now? Any areas, anything that you would like to be?
Oh, so one thing is I got so focused on doing the work that my health suffered. And as a matter of fact, just a few months ago, I had a major health problem, and so now I'm fine. Like I had to have a heart stent put in,
Oh,
and yeah, but now I'm fine. But like I didn't, even though I worked out and I'd walk, and I'd do all these things, I didn't quite take care of myself the way I should because I'd be traveling, I would be doing all kinds of things. And so now when it's like 4 p.m. or whatnot, like I'm done for the day. Like I'm going to take my dog walking for like 5 miles or something like that. It would have to be something insanely important for
right.
me to say, all right, I'll do it. But like, so now I very much put thankfully, like I had great doctors and I'm in great health now. So that was something that I didn't give the focus that I should have. And let's see, things that I'd like to see happening. Um, Along with that, I've done a lot of traveling in my life because I've had to do it for work. I'm a speaker, I'm a keynote speaker, and all these things, but I haven't traveled enough with my wife.
Mm,
So she and I are,
that's
we want to go now to Australia and do things because it was one of these things where it always seemed like there was something more important
right.
there, and now we know that that's an illusion,
Oh,
you
that's
know.
great.
So
Great,
thank
great,
you.
great.
Good question. Yeah,
No problem. But this next question is going to make you think a little bit too.
sure.
Where do you find yourself at peace?
Where do I find? You should ask me some softball questions. Don't ask me all these hard questions. Where do I find myself at peace? Um, I am at one of the places where I find myself at greatest peace is when I'm writing. So when I write, I don't approach writing. So I have a degree in writing. I taught writing at Rutgers. I've written
Okay.
multiple books. I used to write for the New York Times. I've written
Wow.
for Netflix, and I've written for the History Channel and things like this. Or my works appeared on those things that I've written. So what I'm saying is, like, I've made a living from writing, but I never approach writing, or I try not to, in like some kind of difficult, arduous, perfectionistic way. It's
Okay.
much more when I sit there, I tend to write fast.
Okay.
And I tend to just take what it is I'm thinking and dump it out into my computer, like without overly worrying about style. Claude Hopkins, the famous advertising man of the early 20th century. By the way, I did a TEDx talk, which, if your viewers ever get
Yeah.
a chance, where I tell a story about Claude Hopkins, the guy I'm about to talk about.
Yeah.
My talk, it's had over 1 million views. It's called Using the Obvious to Stand Out in Life and Business. So if you look up TEDx Mark Levy or TEDx Using
Yeah.
the Obvious, you'll see it. And I talk about Claude Hopkins in there. But there's a great quote by Claude Hopkins, again, a famous advertising man from the early 20th century. Claude Hopkins, in his writing, tried to adopt the style of no style, is how he quoted it. Like,
Wow.
what should your writing style be? It's the style of no style. Like, in other words, like you should be with the ideas purely and
Right.
however you put them in. So I tend to write in a fast style of no style way. And only after I get everything out do I try to clean it up. And another person who I love. Do you know Ray Bradbury?
Yes.
Ray, you wrote
Yep.
Fahrenheit 451 and I was friends with Ray Bradbury. I used to
Oh
speak
man.
to him like every week. Yeah, yeah, he's a great guy. Like there was like a year I'd speak to him all the time. So Ray talked about like when you write, what you need to do is when you write, you burn the house down. When you edit, you throw water on the ashes. So that's how,
Oh
when
man.
I'm writing, like I burn, like anything goes. I can't make mistakes. Like nothing's a mistake. Everything's right. I allow myself to deviate. I go all over the place. I experiment with thoughts. I put everything down there in what it is I'm writing. And then the next day is when you throw water on the ashes, is when you look it over and you edit it out and you move things
That
around.
is so cool, man.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like
So
they call that's like a brain dump.
that's right. That's right. So it's that brain. I wrote an entire book about something like that. It's called Accidental Genius. It was a bestseller in 3 different formats. So it talks about how I write, but that's how I go about writing, and that's when I'm most at peace, when I allow me just to dump whatever it is I'm thinking into the computer without worrying about public reception of the ideas.
That is so cool, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That is so awesome, Mark.
yeah.
Well, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Okay. I want
Thank
to
you.
thank you so much for taking the time to be on. And as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is brought to you by the Prime Performance Method, where we help high performing men rebuild strength, energy, and confidence without sacrificing their careers. If you're ready to feel as strong in your body as you are successful in your business, message me, John Fayocavitz, on LinkedIn. Until our next episode, perform strong in all areas of your life.